United States prisoners are not free. Well, and they probably shouldn't be. But you know those Made in America stickers? Well, next time you see one of those and ask if this was made in the land of the free, ask yourself just how free this land really is. Under federal law, corporations may employ incarcerated individuals to perform tons of jobs. These companies can then pay their employees, or so-called employees, less than minimum wage. They even receive tax credits as a reward for utilizing this cheap labor. Now, I have seen good people go to prison. Mistakes happen. And it breaks my heart to imagine that instead of rehabilitation, friends and family have gone to jail and suffered under a system of exploitation. Now, whether or not you think you're immediately and personally affected by the prison system, you can be sure that its impacts reach quietly into your life. Now, when we turn a blind eye to corporate exploitation of prison workers, we can prevent inmate rehabilitation, and we damage the U.S. economy. Prison keeps lawbreakers from breaking the law, but that only works until they get out. Does prison actually help prisoners prepare for the real world? Prison labor discourages rehabilitation. And if prisoners can't rehabilitate, they cannot join the real world. Low wages encourage inmates to think of themselves as less valuable employees when they get to the real world. Did you know that wages for prison workers can be as low as 2% and don't really get as high as 12% of the federal minimum wage? Lack of representation, such as unions or government-implemented healthcare, lead to more dangerous working conditions for these employees. Also, prison labor wages are so low that they actually rival the cost of outsourcing jobs, which means that while corporations don't send as much labor to sweatshops, they're mistreating people right here in the U.S. Now, additionally, jobs in manufacturing, which is predominantly what prison jobs are, don't really teach workers valuable skills that they need to better themselves in the world. Most people can work a manufacturing job. Prison workers need to find a way to believe in themselves and to move forward in life. They're people that have been stuck behind and that need to find a purpose. Unicor, a very specific federal work corporation, offers predominantly manufacturing opportunities, and this doesn't help in the long run. So let's recap. Remember that $200 office chair I mentioned in the beginning? Well, I use the chair as an example because it's one of the many products for sale by that company, Unicor. As you can imagine, the inmate that made your chair didn't really learn too much when he was making it, or her. In doing that, it was just doing menial labor. That inmate didn't even get a really good pay job. That inmate got paid between 2 and 12% of what you might have gotten paid for doing the same thing. Even if you don't feel responsible for these inmates, you might want to consider opposing prison labor in the interest of self-preservation. Prison labor is cheap for corporate America, but it costs you, an average American, a pretty penny. When convicts fail to rehabilitate, they end up right back in prison, and we pay for it with our taxes. The National Institute of Justice says that 68% of prisoners go back to prison. Reincarceration. According to the Federal Register, the annual average cost to confine an inmate, that same inmate that went right back to prison, for 1 year at a community corrections center is over $25,000. And we're only talking about a community corrections center. This doesn't include bigger jails or prisons, and this definitely doesn't include the cost to try them or to send them to court. This is $25,000 just to confine this inmate. It would actually be cheaper to send these convicts straight to college. Now, prison labor incentives for corporations to give jobs to inmates rather than to the free citizens are actually pretty high. When the government gives these corporations tax breaks, they want to give the jobs to these prisoners rather than to us. And the unemployment rate then goes up. Currently, the unemployment rate is 5.5%. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported it as almost 10% in 2010. So while the unemployment rate has gone down, it's still not at zero. And prisoners are reaping very little for the jobs that have been taken from people on the outside. Corporations are thriving because they don't have to pay the full minimum wage or offer health benefits. So, that chair you bought, who really benefited from your purchase? Was it the prisoner who made it? Well, probably not. Was it you? Maybe you got a decent chair, right? But it was made by a prisoner. And even if that prisoner worked 50 hours making that chair, they'd make an average of, $20? And you have to pay for the living cost of that prisoner with your taxes. You may even have lost out on a job opportunity. What if a furniture manufacturing store moved most of its jobs into prison labor because they needed the tax break? You know who really profited from this? It was the corporation. Now, prison labor exploitation has pronounced effect on society and on the economy. You can choose to ignore that effect, or you can choose to fight it. Prison labor allows corporations every opportunity to increase their profit margin. And as that profit margin expands, so does the wage gap. Allowing them to obtain cheap labor and offering tax breaks to corporations for taking advantage of that labor doesn't help taxpayers, because we're left paying the difference in opportunity costs and in taxes, while prisoners are withheld the best opportunity to rehabilitate. The system allows the wage gap to expand, just like I said. We really need to reevaluate our priorities as a society. Why not focus on the problem by solving it at its root? Prisoners are just people. If we know that and know that they're capable of grand mistakes, we might be encouraged to help these people find who they are. Let's save the people who need saving. Because corporate America, they can take care of themselves.